The air in the Skytrain car was thick, not just with the usual dampness of a Vancouver evening, but with a growing tension. I could feel it prickling at the back of my neck, even through the thrum of my music. Rush hour on the Expo line was always a bit of a zoo, but this felt different. A recent university grad trying to make my way in the city, was usually lost in my own world on these commutes, headphones on, mindlessly scrolling through my phone. Tonight, though, I couldn't quite ignore the unease that was settling over the passengers. He boarded at the main Street Science World station, a mountain of a man, his frame filling the aisle. But it wasn't just his size, it was the way he moved, a restless, almost violent energy that radiated from him. He was wearing a faded, stained jacket, ripped jeans, and boots that looked like they'd seen better days. A jagged scar traced a path above his left eyebrow, disappearing into his unkempt, dark hair. His eyes were bloodshot, darting around the car, unfocused. He stumbled as he moved, muttering curses under his breath, bumping into a few people without a word of apology. The words, though slurred, were harsh, angry, fragments of sentences directed at no one and everyone. My heart started to pound a little faster. I'm not usually one for confrontation, and this guy, he looked like trouble. I just wanted to get home, finish that report for work, maybe catch a bit of the game on TV. I saw a young mother pull her child closer, her eyes wide with alarm. A businessman in a crisp suit pointedly looked away, pretending to be engrossed in his phone, but his jaw was tight. An elderly couple, sitting across from me, clasped hands, their knuckles white. The subtle shifts, the averted gazes, the clutched bags. Everyone was radiating discomfort, a silent plea for him to just go away. The silence was a suffocating blanket, punctuated only by the man's ragged breathing and the occasional, muffled curse. We were all trapped in this metal box, prisoners of our own fear. There was a wildness in his eyes, but beneath it, I could see something else. Pain. A deep, raw pain that seemed to be tearing him apart from the inside. His hands, large and calloused, were trembling. He clenched and unclenched them, as if fighting an invisible battle. He took a deep, shuddering breath, then let out a low groan that was almost a sob. It was clear he was on the edge. Was it drugs? Mental illness? A bad day turned catastrophic? I didn't know, but it was terrifying. Asterisk, just breathe. Just breathe. Don't lose it. Not here. Asterisk, the thought, fragmented and desperate, flickered through my mind, an unwelcome intrusion. It felt like his thought, somehow, a desperate plea for control. I felt a flicker of pity, a tiny spark of empathy, but it was quickly drowned out by the rising tide of my own fear. I wanted to help, to say something, anything, but I was frozen. She sat near the front, a small, almost fragile figure amidst the tension. Eleanor, I would later learn her name, looked like she'd seen a lifetime of both joy and sorrow, and her eyes held a quiet strength. Her silver hair was pulled back in a neat bun, revealing a face etched with wrinkles, each one telling a story. She wore a soft, lavender cardigan over a floral dress, and a hand-knitted, multicolored scarf was draped around her neck. A worn, leather-bound book lay open in her lap, her finger marking a page. Beside her sat a reusable shopping bag, filled with what looked like groceries, a loaf of bread, some fruit, a carton of milk. She seemed like an oasis of calm in the storm. It was as if time itself slowed down. I watched, mesmerized, as she rose from her seat, her movements slow but deliberate. She placed her book carefully on the seat, her hands, gnarled with age, but steady, unfolding. There was no fear in her eyes, only a profound sense of calm, a quiet determination. Asterisk, he needs help. Just a little kindness. That's all. Asterisk, the thought, simple and clear, seemed to emanate from her, a silent wave of compassion washing over the tense atmosphere. She took a step, then another, her small frame moving towards the towering, agitated man. The contrast was stark, almost unbelievable. David and Goliath, but with kindness as the weapon. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't look away. This tiny, elderly woman was walking towards the very danger we were all trying to avoid. She reached out her hand, her palm open, an offering of peace. He stared at it, his eyes widening, a flicker of confusion, perhaps even disbelief, crossing his face. He hesitated, his own hand hovering in the air, trembling. The seconds stretched into an eternity. Then, slowly, almost reluctantly, he took her hand. The change in him was almost instantaneous. It was as if a dam had broken, releasing all the pent-up anger and frustration. His shoulders slumped, and his face, which had been contorted with rage, softened into an expression of profound sadness. Tears welled up in his eyes, spilling down his cheeks, tracing paths through the grime and sweat. He let out a choked sob, a sound that was both heartbreaking and strangely beautiful. He sank down onto the empty seat beside Eleanor, still holding her hand, his large frame seeming to shrink, to become less threatening. The tension that had gripped the train car dissolved, replaced by a collective sigh of relief, a palpable shift in the atmosphere. I saw a few heads turn, a few eyes meet across the aisle. There was still caution, but the fear had been replaced by something else, a sense of wonder, perhaps, at the power of a simple act of kindness. A young woman, who had been nervously chewing on her lip, let out a shaky breath. The businessman finally put down his phone, his face etched with a mixture of relief and shame. I felt it too, a burning shame at my own inaction, my own fear. I had been so focused on my own discomfort that I had failed to see the man's humanity. Later, after the man had gotten off the train, his demeanor calm, almost serene, I approached Eleanor. I had to know. Al, how did you do that? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Why did you reach out to him when everyone else was so afraid? She smiled, a gentle, knowing smile. It wasn't bravery, she said, her voice a little shaky, still feeling the impact. It was just seeing him, really seeing him. He wasn't a monster. He was a person in pain. And sometimes, all a person needs is a little bit of human connection. She paused, looking down at her hands. I'm a mother, she added, her voice thick with emotion. And he needed someone to touch him, to show him that he wasn't alone. Tears welled up in her eyes, mirroring the tears that had streamed down the man's face. I've had my share of hard times, she added, a faraway look on her face. And there were people, strangers even, who showed me kindness when I least expected it. I guess I was just paying it forward. I walked home that night, the city lights blurring through the rain-streaked windows of the bus. Eleanor's words echoed in my mind. Asterisk seeing him, really seeing him. Asterisk, it wasn't just about that one incident on the train. It was about how I looked at the world, how I treated the people around me. It was a lesson in empathy, in compassion, in the power of human connection. A lesson I wouldn't soon forget. It showed me the type of person I wanted to become.